Hi YouTube, Extreme Trains here. So, I know it was a couple of weeks ago now, but I finally had a chance to finish building the last two engines in the Loz Blocks bootleg Thomas toy review that I started a couple of weeks ago. And these are the two tender engines which come in that set, which are James and Emily. So, what are we waiting for? Let's have a look at them right now. Alright, so the first thing I want to note about Emily and James is they took quite a long time to build, particularly Emily. Emily was an absolute pain in the backside to put together because she had a lot of very unorthodox building techniques. She had a lot of quite illegal techniques, as you'll see in a second. There's a lot of her which just goes together very, very poorly, which is why she takes so long to get together. It's very fiddly. You know, you do one step and doing that step breaks apart the other step, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, both engines did take, you know, a good couple of hours for me to build, so they weren't easy and they have a lot of parts. Again, you still get the included track with both of them, but you get 3 sections of this track, so the engines can fit on them. Alright, so let's have a look at Emily. On her first appearances, she actually looks quite nice. The colours are alright, you can see there's the nice level of detailing, for example, all of these brick-built sections in the tender, with a little edging on the tender. Stuff like the running board here, which is done in that nice brown colour. You can see we've got the buffer section, everything all done. She's actually, like, from a distance, quite a nice looking model. Interesting to note here though that she's got the actual silver buffers, or crystal pieces as buffers, like the other engines. Again, you can see in her some of the cab details. All the engines have some cab details. This here, as you can see, is a direct copy of the Lego. There's a Lego print that looks exactly like that, and this is a copy of that, so you can just see how bootlegged these sets and pieces actually are. So, coming in for a bit of a closer look at Emily, you can see that her tender just kind of hooks on with a piece that looks like this, so it's kind of attached, but like not super well. The tender's quite solid. It actually doesn't have the problem I've talked about as much. You can see kind of the pieces don't fit together super well. As much as Thomas and Percy, which I talked about in the other review, in that the chassis didn't go together very well. The tender's quite solid. It's definitely the more solid piece, which is what you would expect. Also, interestingly, Emily has rubber tyres on all her wheels. She's the only engine who's got them. You can see there's like little rubber tyres. And I don't know why that is, because like none of these wheels are powered, so they don't need traction tyres. Anyway, so now if we just have a look at Emily, we can just see... So, this is why I said this Emily model was an absolute piece of junk, and this is exactly why, because the attachment of the parts to each other is pitiful. Look, see, your bits are falling off everywhere. I'm going to put this back together and continue this review. So this is why, just to anyone who is saying that, oh no, these are real, there's still been some people who are commenting these are real. There's multiple reasons I talked about in my other video why these are not licensed toys, and that's because they don't have the TM on the Thomas & Friends. They didn't have boxes, the instructions had no TM. But there is no way that Mattel would approve a toy that falls apart this easily. Even the Mega Bloks, the reason the Mega Bloks and Duplo Thomases are that way is because Thomas & Friends toys have to be designed for a certain age group. These do not comply to that age group. This piece of Emily does not attach to the rest of her. It literally just sits. I'm just going to see if I can get it in without breaking it again. It's a very, very awkward fit. There you go. This literally just sits here. It is not attached in any way. This boiler section is not attached in any way except for like one part, like one pin in the middle. These buffers are attached by one stud. There is just no way that any official toy would ever be able to be this flimsy, because it really does dampen the enjoyment of the model. So I'm trying to pick up Emily for a second time just to show you. You can see that she's got a carriage kind of wheel for the center wheel. It doesn't touch the tracks. It's too far in. It doesn't look very realistic. I think once you get a bit closer to this Emily, you realize that it is, very much quite a piece of junk. Her face is nice. I think the face is quite good. I think it's probably the best thing about this build. But yeah, this Emily is not a licensed product. This Emily is not a good build. This is definitely something which like you can put on display. Although I think that the oddness of the proportions and the fact that like, it is so fiddly means a lot of people are really going to be turned off by this. yeah, so I'm really not a big fan of Emily, unfortunately. Moving James into frame, he is a much better build. James actually is probably the most cohesive and strongest build of all the engines, which I find quite curious. You can see here he's very simply detailed. You can see he's got the little wheel rims in appropriate places. The scale's a bit off, but you know, that's the whole point. He's got the bars here, the gold striping's all there. This pattern, again, this is a print here, but these ones here are all brick built, like the black pattern in that. You can see again, we've got some detail in the cab, which I'm just going to zoom in on so you can see they do detail all the cabs. I haven't been able to show Thomas and Percy because they hide them away. Again, you get stuff like a lantern and a coupling on the back. Weirdly, this one has a black coupling on the back, but then like a red clip on the front. Also weird that, like, for example, these are meant to be lamp posts, but Emily has one of these as a coupling, as does Thomas, but then Percy has a hook. So it's a little bit weird. I don't understand. It's not very consistent between all the builds, that's for sure. But yeah, I think James is quite plain, actually, and I think his downfall is that compared to the other engines, he's actually not very detailed. Like, he's quite plain. For example, up here I think looks particularly awkward. There's no windows. All the other ones have windows. This one has no windows. It looks very plain from the front. Yeah, I think that the James suffers from being a little bit too simplified, even though it does mean he's a bit stronger. Again, with the inconsistency in build, James is connected by a small ball joint, so he has a little bit of rotation. I think this looks much better because you get a really close connection. It's also a lot stronger. You can actually do this with it. As you can see on the bottom, I had to fix up James's chassis. James had a very poorly designed chassis, so the wheels kept popping off all the time. The tender is slightly better, but not by much. And then the front pony truck, like, it can move, but not very well or very far. And like, I don't think it needs to move because, you know, like, these don't really roll and there's no track provided with them, so it's not really a big concern. My biggest weird thing about James is once we have a look at the face, I think the face is a little bit wrong. Like, it looks a little bit creepy and weird to me. I'm not a massive fan of it. The weirdest thing about James is the funnel. So what the funnel is like 4 rubber tires, like soft rubber car tires, with a top hat, like a Sir Topham hat, top hat on the top, which to me just looks so weird. Oh, there you go. You can see I've just touched him and like a bit's fallen off, which is very unsurprising. Yeah, like, what? It's like, not only does it literally look like a hat on top of the funnel, but the thing is that James has a funnel that's like Thomas's, in that it's like this, you know, it's thin and it has that little bulgy bit. You can't see it, I can't get super close, but you can see how it's constructed like that. I don't understand why I didn't do the same thing for James, because this is just not only inaccurate, but also just looks so weird. Yeah, I don't know, maybe you guys will have a say on the funkiness of James, but yeah. Yeah, so overall with James, I think he's better than Emily. I think he is more cohesive. He's definitely a better build than Emily. He's more stable. But I think, like, the fact that he's a little bit plain, and also he's just, like, the face area needs to be right. And I think with the weird funnel, as much as I've gotten more used to it, it looks weirder in photos. It's still a very weird thing. Very, very weird. Alright, so I've taken a look at the entire Losbricks bootleg, unlicensed Thomas building block set. What are my final thoughts? Well, put it this way. These are certainly curious things for me as a Thomas collector. And I think what they do show is that if Lego or Mega Bloks or a you know, more reputable company actually made licensed brick-built Thomas engines, they would look very, very nice. I think you know, these show that you can make a lot of the details in Thomas & Friends world with Lego bricks without having to be all printed and be all fancy. It can be done. But I think, again, the thing is that obviously when they're done at this quality, they're obviously not toys, they're not something you can play with, and they're going to have weird things going on, like the weirdness that is that funnel, and the nonsense that is this not attachment thing. So that's probably that. The curious thing I want to talk about, though, is the price. I paid 60 Australian dollars for these, with including, like, it had free shipping, free, not express shipping, but like priority shipping on one class down, from China. So $15 each for these isn't actually too bad. I mean, again, they're not they're not the best. They're not the best quality, and they're not the best in what they are, and the bricks aren't the right size. They're not compatible with any other bricks because they're too small. But I think for the price I paid for them, considering it's Thomas and Friends stuff, you can pay a lot of money for the knockoffs, and I thought getting the 4 of them for $60 Australian was pretty decent because they do make a cool talking point for my collection, and they are something that's a bit weird and interesting to talk about. My favourite engine is definitely Percy. 110%, I think they got the Percy 99% right, from the face to the design to the shape, everything. After that, I think my next favourite is probably Thomas, then James, and then Emily as a very far last. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. Which one's your favourite? Would you purchase these? Have you seen them online? Yeah, I'm just really curious to know what your thoughts, because I think these are quite weird items, and I think that overall, they're cool to have in your collection, but I think they're not really, I don't think they're worth going out of your way to find. Like, if you can't get them, not worth losing sleep over. There's heaps of way more functional Thomas toys out there that you could buy, and I think you'd probably get more long-term enjoyment out of, particularly if you actually want to play with your toys. Like, you can't play with these, you can't do anything with them, they'll break if you touch them. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend them for that purpose. That's all I've got to say about these. Hopefully you found it interesting to cover some kind of weird, wacky Thomas stuff. I hope that's something that you've liked or enjoyed. And if you have, don't forget to do all these cool things on YouTube, like and subscribe and comment and share with all your friends and be like, hey, look, I still play with Lego and Thomas. I'm the coolest person ever. Yeah, okay, look, I didn't believe it when I said that either, but that's okay. Alrighty guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy your days. And also, you keep collecting Thomas and Friends merchandise. That's what we've got time for. This is Extreme Train.